Hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Pastor Diogenes coming to you from New York, Warwick, New York. Um, what I want to talk about today is the coming of Jesus, and I wanna be a unifier. I don't want to be a divider. I want to be like Paul and Peter. They were unifiers of the church, and I want to I want to feed God's sheep through the word, the Bible. I want to talk about the coming of the Lord Jesus. And I don't want people to be worried or nervous or anxious for anything, because number one, God is in control. And we have to trust in Him. We have to believe in Him. And we have to have faith in God. So the purpose for my next few videos is to make the Bible easy, make it simple, make it real, make it applicable to your life. I don't want to make the gospel difficult for anybody. I just want to convey to you guys, God's sheep, God's followers, what God has been putting in my heart to do. And I just want to read a little bit about Matthew 24. Jesus says, when he was with his disciples, Jesus says, they ask him, "What is the sign of your return, Lord?" That's what they ask him. When will you come back, Master? And Jesus says there's going to be wars, rumors of wars. There's going to be kingdom rising against kingdom. There's going to be famines, earthquakes in many parts of the world. And he says that these are just the beginning signs, right? And then he says, you will be arrested and you will be persecuted and you will be killed. And you will be hated all over the world, including America. You're going to be hated all over the world. I don't believe that is happened yet. I believe that will happen soon, where Christians will be persecuted and completely throughout the world, and then we will have to make a stand for our faith in the Lord. So we will be arrested, we will be persecuted and killed. And if you guys read the book of Acts, Paul, he's beat up. They whip him, they cane him, they stone Stephen. The apostles are abused and mistreated everywhere they go. There was even a time where Paul, God had to reassure him, because he was getting, he was a little afraid of being persecuted. So God had to reassure Paul, because it's not easy. You go into Paul was going into these different places, and people, sometimes they would receive him, and sometimes they were very angry, and they were violent towards him, and they would whip him, punch, kick him, and throw him in jail. God had to break Paul out of jail a few times because they just threw him in jail. They were going, even in jail, they were planning to kill him in jail. Then Jesus says sin will be rampant everywhere. So we're going to a stage now where sexual immorality is getting very high. Sexual immorality was big with Paul when they were converting the Gentiles. There was they had issues with the circumcision, like physically circumcising people, and a lot of false Christians, false apostles, they said that was a requirement, and Paul said no, that you don't need to do that. That's old. That's under the old covenant. Paul said you had to get your heart right. Paul with some of the elders said, one of the main things you want to do as a Gentile is abstain from sexual immorality. That was huge. God does not like sexual immorality. And then there was I think he said you should abstain from eating blood and abstain from animals that were being strangled. So let's get back on the topic. The topic is we want to know when Jesus is coming back. So one of the big signs is sin will be rampant, including sexual sin, lust, and greed, lust, self-gain, lying, cheating, things like that. Is saying that will be rampant. Then Jesus says, if you will endure till the end, you will be saved. To what end? It may be to the end of your death. You may die in this process. I don't know. Jesus might come back, and you might still be alive. Maybe that might be your end. It says the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world, and all the nations will hear it. Then the end will come. He says the day will come when you will see the sacrilegious object that causes desecration standing in the holy place. Now, when you go to Thessalonians, when you go to Second Thessalonians, Second Thessalonians, verse 2, it talks about how the Antichrist will exalt himself. He's going to stand in the temple of God and say that he is God. So it says, Matthew 24:15 says, the day is coming when you will see, when Daniel the prophet spoke about the sacrilegious object that causes desecration standing in the holy place. The sacrilegious object. So I believe that's referring to the Antichrist standing in the temple of God. And if you go a little further down, he says, 24 verse 22, in fact, unless the time of calamity is shortened, not a single person will survive, but it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones. So in the midst of all this sin going rampant, in the midst of all this war, famine, and earthquakes, it says the time will be shortened in verse 22 because of God's chosen ones. And it can't be clearer than that. God's chosen ones are still there on the earth. Not something that I want to go any further, discuss any further, because that's what it says. So there's going to be people, it says here, there's going to be people that tell you, look, the Messiah is coming. He's over there. He's over here. He says, don't believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up They're going to perform great signs and wonders as to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones. See, these false prophets, these false messiahs are going to come up to deceive God's chosen ones. Right? That's the whole thing. And try to deceive God's people. So, I mean, we're still not, I don't think that we still have safe havens in the world for Christians. I don't think that, and then we still need as far as Thessalonians go, the Antichrist needs to stand in the temple and declare himself God before Jesus comes back. And Jesus says, as lightning flashes in the east and shines in the west, so will it be when the Son of Man comes. So it's gonna be clear, and it's gonna be no mistake. When Jesus comes, it's gonna be evident in the clouds. So Jesus is saying, don't believe these people are telling you, oh, Jesus is coming back, Jesus is coming back, Jesus is coming back. That is not of God. We know when Jesus is going to come back because he told us, Matthew 24, he tells us when he's going to come back. He says, verse 30, 24:30 says, Matthew 24:30, the Son of Man is coming. The Son of Man is coming, will appear in the heavens, and there will be deep mourning for all the people of the earth. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with great power and great glory. He says, then the angels will gather his chosen ones all over the world, from the farthest ends of the earth. Again, it says from the farthest ends of the earth, saying the earth has ends. People, I don't know. What does that mean to you? The earth has ends. A sphere doesn't have ends, right? So we're still waiting there's going to be a tremendous falling away. There's going to be a tremendous falling away before Jesus comes back. There's going to be people arrested, persecuted, and killed, mostly Christians. And Christians are going to be hated all over the world. Then the Antichrist is going to stand in the temple of God and declare himself to be God. And then Jesus is coming in the clouds. So do not be deceived, do not be fooled. There's still much persecution to come. There's still many troubles to come for Christians. And it's going to gradually get worse, but it's going to get better for us when the Lord comes back. But remember, Paul was heavily persecuted. Paul, they stoned him so bad one time. They threw him out in the street outside because they thought he was dead. And because of the grace and the mercy of God, he was still alive. They threw Paul in jail many times. They planned to kill Paul many times. They beat Paul mercilessly many times. And, Paul went through so much, and what I like about Paul is that he lived the life of the Lord. The Lord came, and when he was on earth, he suffered greatly too, but when you read about Paul, it's very descriptive. It's like he walks you through his life. And Paul was an apostle. He was the apostles. It says that he was the apostle of the Gentiles, which was us at the time. Paul defended our rights not to be circumcised and not to live by the law. of Moses. He defended the Gentiles. He stood up for the Gentiles. So do not be deceived, my brothers and my sisters, when they tell you that Jesus is on the way or that he's right around the corner, because he is close, but we know the signs when he's coming back, and we know that there's still much persecution to happen still, and much there's going to be a large falling away